Hi everyone! It's taken us almost a year to do what should have taken us only 6 months. This is episode 25 of Dr. Film's Psychedelic Mustache Review Emporium. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Bennett.
And I'm Matt Canella, and today we're reviewing Boyhood, the most recent release from director Richard Linklater. This movie spans a 12-year period of a boy growing up into potentially manhood, starring Ethan Hawke, Patricia Arquette, and as the boy, Eller Coltrane.
So this movie is a coming-of-age tale. And I don't know if we can call that a genre, a film genre, but there are definitely some moments in films like this that you would expect to see, like first kisses and stuff like this. How did this movie do at sort of taking you back to your childhood and evoking those emotional memories for you?
Yeah, definitely certain things just come through and I immediately relate it to my own life. And definitely just being a boy, palling around on bikes through the neighborhood, being on your own for a bit, you know, spray painting cans on a wall and doing something that you shouldn't be doing and nobody knows. You know, those are the things that stick. And then weird ones like seeing death for the first time, or a dead bird, or these things that are just deep-seated Freudian type memories, you know, that stick and shape who you are in the long run. I think it hit on some of them, but over the course of the overall film, I feel like I didn't get a lot of these impactful moments. I'm not sure if I agree with all of the choices of what was shown to craft this story, and I feel like there was something that could have impacted more if those right scenes were chosen. Does that sound,
yeah,
does that make sense to a degree?
Yeah, I can kind of feel where you're coming from. I thought the moments that they chose for this film were pretty impactful, at least for me. I got a strong sense of my own childhood, remembering things like going camping with my dad, or, you know, sneaking a peek at a Playboy, or being taught how to shoot a gun. Like, those things did really resonate with me, and I thought were some of the strongest points of this film. Overall, I thought this movie was kind of bland, but we'll get into my reasons for that in a little bit. But as far as evoking those memories from me of my childhood, I thought this movie succeeded pretty strongly, at least for me.
You know, we don't have a huge cast. You know, some of the characters are, you know, as we grow up, some come in and out as people do in our lives. But what remains the constant, right, is supposed to be Boyhood, the tale of Mason growing up. And I felt that he wasn't focused on completely enough. It seemed like we had, you know, it was more like Familyhood, Divorce Edition, you know, or a Split Parents Edition. And that's really what we got out of this. And so what is his relationship like with each of them, the people that they bring in and out as they move on with their own lives, and kind of that split relationship. Yeah. A little bit of the sister too, how they work together.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. That I think more of the focus of this film should have been placed on the Mason character. The film is called Boyhood, and it's about this actor, this character that they found when he was young, and they follow him as he's growing up in real time. But what we got was a lot of sort of extraneous components. Things like his girlfriend's elongated conversation with his sister. They're two outside characters from what should be the main focus of the film, and they're talking about something that's not that important to the story. But I feel like we got a lot of those little scenes here and there. Okay, it's okay that you're showing this because those are elements of, I guess, the family dynamic that they're crafting for it, but it doesn't really lend much to what should be the focus of the film, which is his character development.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just because it feels like Mason doesn't have a lot of focus in life, which is fine. You know, I think he eventually finds himself a little bit through photography and art and learns to express himself. And although I like that we're presenting something that feels more human in that sense, that we're not compartmentalized into a specific role, I felt like because there wasn't enough pull one way or another, it just fell a little flat for me.
Yeah, and I think you're starting to touch on what is probably one of my biggest gripes with this film, is I felt like it was lacking kind of a main thrust. It was lacking direction. I wasn't given a clear idea of what the objective for the Mason character was in this film. So as much fun as it was for me to see a lot of those scenes of him growing up and having those moments of like drinking his first beer and hanging out with his friends, and at a certain point I was like, where's this film going? Like, what's the point of this? And that's when I was starting to kind of get bored with the movie. Like, the individual scenes can all be great, but if they're not sort of leading me to something, you're just showing me a bunch of footage.
Yeah, so a couple of scenes really came at the end that really, finally sort of tied whatever theme they were trying to get across in the film, which was after Mason graduates, him and his dad have this sort of scene in the bar where they're talking about, what life is about. And Ethan Hawke kind of lets him in on the secret that, none of us really know what we're doing. We're all just flying blind, so to speak, or we realize at some point that we have to be the censor of our own lives. And I think it's kind of really brought home at the end that he finally meets a new girl at the dorm that he's living at, and is a little bit more of his persuasion, the artistic type, and that resonates with him. And he finds that maybe where he's always been trying to get to in life, somewhere else, has really been here like all along, inside, if he can just see it.
I thought that the scene at the bar was the end of the movie, where he kind of comes to that conclusion. He's let in on that secret. And then the movie continues on. And I recognize that scene at the end of the movie is sort of him putting into practice what his dad taught him at the bar. But it didn't really progress the film much further than that point. And in a movie that already kind of lacked direction, I thought he already came to the conclusion. Like, I thought the movie was over, and then it turns out I had another half hour. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the acting in this movie, because this film obviously was made differently than most other films, where they started with an actor when he was very young and followed him into his young adult life, of filming presumably a little bit every couple of years. How was the acting in this movie? How was Eller Coltrane?
I think it was good. I think it was a little stiff, and I don't know if that stems from, you're roped into this at age 5, and now whether you want to or not for the foreseeable next 13 years, you're going to be back and you're going to be being an actor. Will he continue to act? I'm not sure if that's his passion or not. It's interesting that you're, as a director, willing to take a chance that he could have at any time in his life said, fuck it, like, I'm not doing this anymore, and now you figure out the movie. I don't really care, but it seems like everyone stuck around, did it to the end, and in that sense, I commend everyone in the film for doing so. That is a feat to be accomplished.
Yeah, I thought the kid was okay. I actually thought most of the people in this movie were okay. That being said, I did really like Ethan Hawke in this film. And you had mentioned earlier that you felt that the father-son relationship in this film was one of the most interesting, or one of the most engaging, or one of the most positive in the Mason character's life. And I wonder how much of that is just because in those moments it felt more organic, it felt more real because of the talent that Ethan Hawke brought to those scenes. Because I like Ethan Hawke quite a bit in a lot of his films. And I felt like when he was on screen, everyone's performances were a little bit better, and I think it helped make those scenes that he was in feel more lively and genuine.
Yeah, I liked the relationship, and he seemed to be one of the only quasi-positive influences in his life. And that's what was hard for me, was we saw a lot of negative relationships, specifically the relationships he has with his other stepfathers that the mom brings in. His story as a father had an arc that he finally finds himself at the end and is with a woman that he can be proud with, and they're going to church.
All right, that seems like a pretty logical place for us to jump into love-hate. What did you love about Boyhood? What did you hate about it?
What I loved about Boyhood was Ethan Hawke and his relationship with his son Mason Jr. It seemed like both of them were, in a sense, going from boyhood to adulthood because he's an overzealous father that doesn't really always know how to raise his son to be the best man, and they're both just doing the best job that they can. I think it was the most dynamic relationship in the movie, and I would have even liked to see more of Ethan Hawke on screen. What I hated was the fact that Mason didn't really have any of these like paradigm shifting ideas until the very end of the film. It took him this whole film to get there, but he was always so placid and, apathetic after seeing death or kissing a girl or doing any of the things in life. He really didn't have a lot of emotion until the very end. What about you, Steve?
What I loved about the movie Boyhood were those moments that really brought out those emotional memories of my own childhood. Things like riding a bike and causing mischief, going camping with my dad and having him teach me how to shoot a gun. Those moments all landed so perfectly with me, and they were the strongest parts of this film. What I hated about this movie was that it lacked any kind of central thrust. There was no direction to this film, so I had no idea what the end goal was for the Mason character or where the film was going to conclude, and it left me just wondering why I was watching all this footage of a kid just growing up. So that's my love-hate, and that brings us to Volkswagen buses. How many Volkswagen buses out of 10 are you going to give Boyhood?
I'm going to give Boyhood 6 Volkswagen buses out of 10. There was a lot of good parts, and I definitely didn't feel like I was wasting my time seeing this film, especially because it stands as a testament to a particular accomplishment in cinematic history, a span of 12 years filming. That's interesting. What about you, Steve?
It's weird when our scores differ by more than a point, but this is going to be one of those cases. I'm going to give Boyhood 4 Volkswagen buses out of 10, and it kind of pains me to give it a score so low, given that I know the filmmakers and the actors and everyone put in so much time on this movie, but I think if you take that away from this film, if you can divorce that aspect of it, what you're left with is just kind of a bland movie. And
I definitely agree. I try not to think about that so much as like this is a great reason to see this movie, and us having seen film, it's maybe more of particular interest. But you're right, the story just didn't seem all that well crafted. I mean, and maybe it shows a testament to why we film things in 3 months, because we can get that central idea across, or these shorter film times for movies, because we stay focused and on point, while this one seemed muddled at times.
Yeah. All right, you want to bring this thing to an end?
I think it's at its end.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Dr. Film's Psychedelic Mustache Review Emporium. Till next time, take care.
Thanks for watching.